Have you ever felt seriously pressured into signing something? You know, in contract law, there's a very specific word for that. It's called duress. But what does it actually legally take to prove you were forced into a contract? Well, today, we're going to decode it.
So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to start with a little quiz, straight from our source material. One of these options is supposed to be the best legal description of duress. But I'll give you a heads up. The answer is probably not what you think.
All right, let's put on our detective hats here. We're going to treat each of these possible definitions like a suspect in a police lineup. Our job? To figure out which one, if any, really defines legal duress.
Okay, suspect number one is all about physical intimidation. So picture this. Someone keys your car or smashes your phone screen and then slides a contract in front of you and says, sign. It's definitely a type of pressure, no doubt, but is it legally duress?
I mean, it feels coercive, for sure. But is minor damage to goods really the core of what the law considers duress? Is that specific enough to get a whole contract thrown out? Let's see what the source material says.
And that's a big nope. Our first suspect is officially cleared. So while damaging someone's property is obviously illegal, it turns out it's not the best description of duress in contract law. The investigation continues. All right, let's move down the lineup. The next couple of options, they both hinge on this idea of pressure. But as you're about to see, the law is super picky about what kind of pressure actually counts. So suspect number two moves us out of the back alley and into the boardroom. We're talking about strong commercial pressure. You know, think about a supplier who threatens to cut you off unless you agree to their new crazy terms. Or a competitor who makes you a take-it-or-leave-it offer that feels impossible to refuse. Now, this probably sounds pretty familiar to anyone who's ever had to negotiate anything, really. But just because you feel the heat in a business deal, does that automatically make it legal duress? And again, the answer is no. Turns out the law makes a really important distinction between just tough, hard-nosed bargaining and actual illegal coercion. So suspect number two is also off the hook. Okay, here we go. Suspect number three. The key phrase here is illegitimate pressure. Now that sounds way more official, right? It has that legal ring to it. You can almost feel us getting closer to the answer. This has to be it, doesn't it? Illegitimate seems like the perfect word. It's not too specific like damage to goods, but it's more pointed than just strong pressure. This feels right.
And here is the twist. Would you believe it? This is still not the right answer. It's close, but it's not considered the best description. So if the first three options are all wrong, what in the world is the answer?
So this brings us to the big reveal. We've gone through all the most likely suspects, and none of them fit the bill. The real answer here? Well, it's probably not what you'd expect. So after all that, after eliminating our first three suspects, the correct option, according to our source material, is number 4. And what is option 4? It simply says none of the other answers is correct. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't just some trick question. It's actually a brilliant way to show just how incredibly precise legal language has to be. So, what does this all mean? It means that the real legal definition of duress is a 2-part test, and it's a really high bar. You generally have to show both of these things. First, an improper threat that's so serious it basically crushes your ability to choose freely. And second, that you had no reasonable alternative. You truly believed you had no other choice but to sign. See, none of our first three options really capture that whole picture. This whole duress puzzle actually points to a much bigger idea about how the law works. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about the ultimate takeaway here. The big lesson here is that in the legal world, words are everything. Nuance is king. What might feel unfair or pressured in our everyday lives doesn't always meet the super strict, very specific legal definition you need to actually void a contract. The details really, really matter. And that leaves us with one final fascinating thought. We've just seen how a simple word like duress is way more complex than it seems. So what other common words like consent, negligence, or even ownership, have these hidden legal depths? It's a great reminder that when it comes to the law, the dictionary is just the beginning. Thanks for digging into this with us.